Now, regulars of this channel know I love Porsches. I've owned two air-cooled 911s from the late 90s, the last of the air-cooled 911s. And I've driven 80s versions of 911s, but never a 930 Turbo. So this is a great chance for me to drive an era of Porsche that just really signified the whole ostentatious 80s, a 1988 930 Cabriolet. First out, massive shout out to Core Motor Cars here in Vancouver for letting me drive this car for the day. Core Motor Cars always has some unique and fun vehicles. Go and check out the website corecars.com. The link is below if you're interested. This car has been a bit of an international traveler. It was registered in the United States first of all, and then was shipped to Japan, and then it came here to Canada. Now, it's not uncommon for older Porsches to leave Japan because after a certain amount of time, they become very expensive to register. Japan doesn't want older model vehicles on the road, so a lot of them come here to the West Coast, and that's why this car is here. This car has only 45,000 miles on it, so I would call it a survivor, absolutely. It's finished in black over black, so this is called a triple black. So a little bit about the 930. Why was this car introduced in 1975? Well, Porsche was out racing and they needed to have a homologated car, meaning they had to produce a certain number of real road-ready production cars in order to qualify for racing. So what they did was they made 400, that was the limit, of these cars in 1975. Now back then, it was a 911, of course. The very first turbocharged 911, it had a 3-liter engine. That's why it's called the 930. Subsequently, they added more displacement. The car you're looking at here is a 3.3 liter. So it's a 930, but it's got a larger engine. So what happened in 1975? Those 400 road-ready cars sold out very quickly, and Porsche wanted to qualify for another category of racing, so they homologated even more cars. So right around 1975-76, there was about 1,000 of these cars. Then they decided to put it as a series production, and they were delivered until about 1980 in North America. The US stopped importing them because of fuel emissions regulations. They continued to be sold here in Canada for a couple of years, and then they came back for North America in the late 80s, and that's what we have here. This is the most iconic era of 930, the late 80s cars. 87, 88, and 89 was the very last year, and Cabriolet was only available in this iteration. So the very end of the 1980s, you get the larger engine, you get a Cabriolet offered, and this was very popular. As I mentioned, the ostentatious, over-the-top 1980s. Just think of the movie Wall Street with the big brick cell phone and a 930 Turbo Cabriolet with the massive whale tail out the back. This screams 1980s. And if you follow air-cooled 911s, the prices of air-cooled 911s have shot way up over the last 5 to 7 years. So let's get in. I'll show you the inside of this car. We'll take it for a drive. My very first time ever driving a 930. This is going to be fun. So I just want to talk about how much has changed since this car was introduced. So this is a 3.3 liter flat 6, big turbocharger on there, single turbocharger, 282 horsepower. Now my 993, my air-cooled 993, which was not turbocharged, had just 10 horsepower less than this, and that was about 10 years later. So it just shows you how much everything changes. So this isn't just about being fast, this is about being classy and iconic and owning a piece of history. That's what you get if you own a 930. Now a little bit of history about these cars. These were the top machines by Porsche of the era, the Turbo, and of course now they still use Turbo and Turbo S for the top models, even their electric cars. But this car has a surge of power that comes on right around 3,000 RPM as the turbocharger spools up to give you all of that extra power, which requires a special kind of driving. Because you have to anticipate the surge of power that comes on from the turbocharger, it takes some practice to get used to it. And that's why older cars are so much more engaging than a modern car. A modern car, you hit the gas and bam, away it goes. It's all done for you through electronics, variable geometry, turbochargers, twin turbochargers, all of that kind of stuff. With this era of 911 Turbo, it's all up here. you have to learn how to drive this car. So here we are at 3,000 RPM now in a straight line, and you just wait, and on comes that surge of power. Now the trick with this is, when you're driving aggressively and fast, is when you roll on the power or push on the throttle while you're going around a corner. Because these cars were known for the turbos coming on and snapping the rear end around. Now, that's something you have to know, that's something you have to learn, that's something you've got to practice. This car has been around the world. It's here in Canada on the West Coast. And cars like this are basically looked after from one owner to the next. Basically a caretaker looking after it, maintaining it, enjoying it, and then passing it on to the next guy. I think that this car is a relative value when you look at the cost of other air-cooled 911s. Like I mentioned, those late 90s last air-cooled 911s, you can get a Carrera S. It's going to cost you the same amount of money as this 930 Turbo. But it's got a lot of history. Okay, next, tunnel test. Do you hear that swoosh of power? Awesome. Let's do it again. Okay, we're coming up to the tunnel again. I got to get the throttle up a little beforehand, and here we go. That's awesome. One little tunnel here. Fortunately, there's a stop sign at the end of it. All right, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again to Core Motor Cars here in Vancouver for letting me drive this piece of history. The car is for sale. If you want to check out the website, it's really easy to remember, corecars.com. The link is below. Always has some cool inventory there. So a lot of fun. Survivor car, only 45,000 miles on the clock. A lot of fun and primitive yet exciting all at the same time. Very cool car.